Well, hello again, and welcome back, friends, to another Fire Pit Conversation with me, Richard Clinton. And it's good to be back, good to be here talking with you again. And it's a little different. Usually I film these videos and these discussions, I do these on a Friday morning, and this is coming in on a late afternoon. So a little bit different, but I just really want to make sure I continue to be able to share these thoughts and things that are going on in my life with you, and hopefully, again, still offer you some encouragement in your life and as you're going through your day to day, no matter where you're at and no matter what's going on in your life. Um, so I pray everyone's having a good week. It's been quite a ride for me and my family personally in a lot of ways. Um, I shared this a little bit on my Facebook page on Monday morning, and a little bit ahead of that, but haven't really talked about it here so much of just what has been going on in my life personally over the last many months, 8 months to be exact. Um, 8 months ago, for those that don't know me personally, and I was uh, I was let go from my job for the first time in my life. And I walked into a meeting on an early morning and was told that my employment had ended with that company I've been with for almost 14 years. You can imagine the kind of the range of emotions that'll go through someone's head when they just realize they've been fired, um, and what that's meant, and all that. And it's been quite interesting to see that, um, from that day to that the process, really what God has done in my life and in my family in that time. Um, it's been something to really think about it, and written about it a little bit, and kind of processed. And but this week, it's kind of come around a little more, and because this past Monday, I was finally able to return to work. And it's been quite a wild time. Never expected that things would take that long to kind of churn up, and then the coronavirus situation started up, and everything got delayed again. And but so uh, life began to move that way again. And it's so and I really wanted to kind of talk to you all about that again today, and really share my heart and what I felt like God has done with that through over again the course of these 8 months. And you know and I'll share more of this as time unfolds, as because this story is still being written. But the day that all that happened, last September, was um, just threw everything into this crazy whirlwind of uncertainty. There was a lot of fear. There was a lot of anger. But at the same time, at the exact same time, there was all this feeling of freedom and relief. Really felt like God, in many ways, had rescued me from what had become a life of security and safety, and really rescued me from myself. When He met me, and I had my first real encounter with God, some 5 years ago. There was this, again, that question that was asked, if I would follow and trust Him, right? And I, I surrendered. I said yes. I gave all that to God, and it's been amazing how that's what's taken place and transpired over the course of the last 5 years, not just in my life, but in my wife and in my three kids, who are almost all grown now, um, and also those around us, those we've been able to really talk to, minister to, spend some time counseling with, and all of that. It's been wild being able to take what's happened there and the ripple effect that it's done, right? Um, and I've always felt since that time that God's really been moving my life and my wife Amber in this direction, to really continue to reach people, to speak, um, to speak love, to speak the gospel, to really go after the hearts of men and women, and so forth. And but we knew that was going to take time. We knew there was a lot of process that needed to happen, and it's not something that comes overnight. So um, as things began to happen over the last couple years, as we started our men's and women's weekends with Anvil and Unveiled, we launched Deep Roots Ministries just over a year ago. It felt like God was really beginning to move us. But I was in this season of life where I didn't know if I was when a transition was going to be made. And I think in many respects, and I don't know if I could have named it then, because I really felt like I was really trying to go after the desires of my heart, and really felt like I was really trying to honor God in what I was doing. But at the same time, I felt like there was also this almost uneasiness of letting go of all the security that we've had for the last 20 plus years, right? Of from a financial standpoint, and everything, and just knowing and how everything was taken care of in our lives. And so when I look back and reflect back on it now, and I gave God my yes and said, I will follow you on this down the narrow road, Jesus. I'm going to follow you, and no matter where it leads. And I really felt like that moment 8 months ago was almost this moment of almost calling me on that commitment again. Of you have, you said you're going to follow me, but you haven't fully trusted me yet, and so it put us in this position where that employment came to an end. So now we're kind of reeling, like, okay, God, what next? And I'm not even thinking about from a ministry standpoint, from a vocational standpoint, or anything like that, but really just what really God has been up to through all of this. And friends, I think in many ways he's kind of trying to be, he's up to this for a lot of us in many different respects. And that's the training that continues to go on in our lives through every aspect, through everything that goes on. And for me personally, one of the things that I really wrestled with when this all first came down was the feeling of failing, a feeling like a failure, feeling like I have just completely. I'm having a loss of the word right now, but not even not living up to the obligations and the expectations of my family and those around me and those of myself. Right, really felt like I had really failed in that aspect. But there was a huge rescue, a couple huge rescues that came during that time. One came from Dan Allender. Dan Allender is he's a psychologist and author that I've really come to really look to for in my growth and journey, just from his reading and things he's written, from Leading with the Limp to The Ways of the Wounded Heart to Be Told, and all those, of being able to really dive into story and all that. And so there, at the exact same time, that exact same period when I had lost my job, he had released a podcast all about facing failure. And it was like, it was something, because it really helped me kind of put in perspective of, you know, there's still something going on here. God's still up to something in the midst of all this. And I need to go back to listen to that again to remember some of the specifics. But there was, in that moment, I remember how much of a rescue that was from my heart, of just like, okay, this is okay, right? And then I was going through, and I'd had a series of conversations with some friends and brothers that have really been so huge and instrumental and supportive through all this, and praying with me and praying for me and my family, and what that's done. But I was going back through this book, The Heart of a Warrior, by Michael Thompson, and their ministry, Zoe, has been a huge instrumental part of of my life, of my growth, these last couple years, them and Ransom Heart and all that, and what that's meant for us. And and our family, and having them as allies, and really developing a friendship with them has been huge. But something that Michael wrote really started sticking out to me. And he says, the way of a warrior is something that brings relief to the oppressed and trouble to the oppressors. But mastering it takes time, patience, wisdom, understanding, and failure. Yes, failure. It takes that. And that was another big rescue for me, friends, because it really helped remind me of, through the midst of all that, God still up to so much good. And if I'm going to be an oriented man, I've got to be able to recognize the good that God is up to, right? Knowing who I am as a son of God, um, and in my place in this story, and in the larger story, and recognizing the good that God is up to in all aspects of my life. And this has been another thing, and knowing and remembering and recognizing that this, it was a part of the plan, of the rescue, of the restoration, of the continued becoming in my story, of what God can do. Because sometimes, I mean, He will bring us through some of the hardest, most difficult times, but He uses all of those things in a way that trains us up, if we let Him, to help us not only grow closer to Him, but also just become more of the men and the women that we are meant to be, who God meant when He met each one of us, right? Um, so it has to, and it's a process, and remembering that it all takes time, right? So it's interesting as I step into this week, and it's into a job role that I was never expecting, because I'm very passionate about the mission of Deep Roots and what we have of going after the hearts of men and women, and especially seeing men restored so that their families, their wives, their children can begin to follow in restoration with them, because it has to begin. I firmly believe that it begins with men standing up and rising up and becoming the men God meant when He met each one of us. So that's that's the central piece of our mission and who we are, and this big central piece of, just, I would say, my life mission, right? So knowing all of that and stepping into this new job and seeing that, it's completely out of the realm of anything I've done. But it's training me up, because being able to now doing what I'm going to be able to do, of encountering small businesses and people around. I've got a 200 square mile area that I'll be covering. I'm working with business owners and helping them secure their locations, their homes, and all kinds of things in that realm. It was something that was not in the realm of anything I'd expect to be doing, but I realized that God is using that. He's training me up, because He's bringing me in a position where I continue to trust Him. It's no longer the ease of everything. I know where everything's coming from, where every dollar's coming from, and knowing how everything is going to go. Now it's this complete uncertainty of, I don't even know what's going to happen. Am I going to know where the next sale comes from? Even the question that I've wrestled with, of can I even sell, right? But I think the beauty of it is God's using that, I think, to really train me, and not only the way I can really be able to talk with people and really walk with people in their stories and their lives, but and just being able to minister their hearts. So I think the two kind of go hand in hand. In that sense. So it's wild to kind of process all this and seeing how God moves in ways we never expected, friends. And just knowing that He's called each one of us, and that He's there with us, and even in the toughest and darkest of times. And I was reading through, and this scripture kind of stuck out to me. And I just wanted to share it with you. It's from Isaiah 43. where he says, "Do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you, for I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior." And that just, I don't know, there's something about that that just kind of captured me again, and remembering that in the midst of any difficulty that we face, that God's right there with us. He's not forgotten about us, right? You know, and it's so hard oftentimes to remember that, because we are racked with so much difficulty. We are racked with so much pain and suffering, and I can't even tell you the stories of loss that I've heard, that we've experienced in our lives personally over the last year and a half, but then that have happened over the last weeks, with friends and people that we've come to know in recent times. Some just heartbreaking stories. One in particular that just had my wife and I just kind of reeling because of the circumstances that are going on in this world right now, and a friend losing his spouse, his wife, and I won't go into the details of that, but it was just, there's so much suffering. Again, there's so much suffering and things going on, but at the same time, that it reminds me that no matter what rivers of difficulty we go through, as Isaiah writes here, no matter what circumstances we encounter, as easy as it is for the lies of Satan to begin to infiltrate our hearts, to begin to force and start making us make vows and agreements that are absolute lies, that knowing that it's an absolute truth, that God is there with us, and that He loves us through it, and He's going to guide us through it, and teach us and train us through it. And things aren't always going to go the way we hope, the way we want, the way we expect them to go. But at the same time, it's the truth that He's always there with us through it all, and that there's always a promised hope on the other side of the eternal reward that still awaits each one of us that are in Christ Jesus, right? And that's the beauty of everything. It all comes back to that. Always comes back to that, because there's always a promised hope that no matter what we deal with, that we can always trust in the truth and who Jesus says He is, and also in the promised hope of the return and the coming of the kingdom and the restoration of all things. I think that's just the beautiful thing that we have to look forward to. So there's just and that's just kind of what's been on my mind a lot this week, and just kind of as life kind of begins to establish some kind of routine for me again, and for my family, as I do return to work and more of I get a sort of a schedule. It's going to be a little different. Again, a little different from anything I've done. It's not a 9 to 5 by any means, but at the same time, it's this realizing that God has been up to so much good through all of that, and I can rest with so much comfort and ease in knowing that He's been a part of this whole narrative, and that even on days when I've just been beside myself and unsure of what's going on, and angry at myself for what's happening, or even frustrated that I don't know what's coming next, been able to always come back and remember that God has been right there with us, that He's continued to work in me, and it's just so such a cool thing to kind of reflect back on, as you begin to look back and you get to see the way God's working. And as the term I heard Morgan Snyder with Ransom Heart say, of learning to live in the day and measure in the decade, right? So there's been this continued excavation I've been allowing God to do in my heart over the last few years, and this has been a part of that. And I can look back and being able to not see results immediately, but see the movement and the growth that takes place in my heart as he continues to renovate the deep places of my heart through these various circumstances in my life. So it's been amazing to kind of walk through, and I don't even know how the story is going to end because it's still being written, right? Um, Amber and I were reflecting on that last night, that we don't know where this is all going to lead. We know what's true to our hearts, what's really passionate for us, but what God has made it clear is He said, don't force anything. Just walk with me in this. Trust me. And that's what we all have to remember. Just walk with God in it. Trust what He's going to do, and trust as we follow Him down the narrow road that He's going to lead us in the way that we should go, and that He's never forsaken us, never abandoning us through all of it. And that's just the cool thing about it all. There's so much to look to beyond anything we can imagine. Right? It's not even about the here and now, but it's about the promised hope that's ahead. So I look forward to seeing what happens, and as it unfolds, I'll share it. I'll share what's going on, because it's been a wild journey, and He's been so faithful. He has provided. He has been right there with us, and just being willing to trust that to be true, and now seeing it lived out. That just trusting Him has been is the real deal, and that His promises are true. That He gives and provides everything that we need when we need it. Not when we want it, but when we need it. He's right there, and it's just been amazing. So it's been a cool story, and I'll continue to share more. So again, it's been a pleasure just being here again to share with you what's going on in my life, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here on the next Fire Pit Conversation. Till then, take care, friends, and God bless.